2025 Early Connections Conference, Expression, presented by the Van Sloun Foundation. Early Connections Conference logo, Life Beyond the Living Room.
It's my honor to introduce Brenda Allaire and Lacey Smith. They are going to be presenting about Life Beyond the Living Room.
I feel like we should applaud you all for your patience. So thank you very much. I'm Brenda Allaire. I am an assistant director at the New England Consortium on Deafblindness. I am also the parent of 3 children who are now young adults. And my youngest daughter is blind due to a genetic condition. And Lacey.
Hi, I'm Lacey Smith. I'm mom to 1 child. She's almost 14. She's a student here at Perkins. She has a rare genetic diagnosis known as Ogden syndrome, and she's about one of 165 in the world living with her condition. As my role here, I am the CVI Now Parent Community Manager, so you may have spoken with me before. If not, and you would like to connect at some point, please feel free to do so.
We're going to dance if you want to dance. So we want to give you a little bit of information today about something that's really important for Lacey and I, and something that we talk a lot about with the families and providers that we work with, which is really talking about getting our kids beyond the living room, right? So thinking about all of the places that you might be getting early intervention is more than likely in your house. If you're a provider, you do a lot of home visits, right? And there's some really important things that we want you to consider about natural environments, about the importance of outdoor activities, about how visual impairment, deafblindness, and some complex medical needs can impact the way that kids learn, and the importance of developing concepts. And then we're going to share our perspectives and some resources that we've found as parents along the way.
There we go. Sorry.
One more. There we go. So I did a quick Google search, right? So I worked in early intervention for a really long time. I'm still very lucky that I get to do home visits. But when I did a Google search I just Googled early intervention, and these are the pictures that come up. And all of them are pictures of babies and families and providers on the floor in the living room. And I started thinking, how many typical kids spend all of their time in the living room? They don't, right? They're in the kitchen and they're in their room and they're outside. And our kids need that too. And so that's sort of some of the things that prompted this conversation. So we're going to talk a little bit about what a natural environment could look like if we thought about outside the living room. So some settings that you can think about if you're a provider or a family. Home is a natural environment, but the living room isn't the only place in your house, right? There's a kitchen, there's a bathroom, there's a bedroom, there's maybe, a play area. There's all sorts of places inside your house that you could go. Maybe your child goes to childcare. Do they know all about the childcare or only that one space that they're typically in? A backyard, which can mean anything from sort of a really big, luscious yard, which I do not personally have, or a little play area outside your house. Do you have a park nearby? Do you go to the grocery store? Is there a library in your town? Think again, where would you be taking your child if you weren't concerned about their medical needs or their developmental needs? And we want to give you some options for those. What kinds of things do you play with, right? Typically, if you're in the living room, you've got sort of this little toy bin set up. But again, typically developing children are exploring lots of different materials. So they definitely are looking at toys and books, but they're exploring in the kitchen and different mealtime utensils, pots and pans, musical instruments. This is a picture of a little guy that I used to work with, swinging in an adaptive swing in a local park. And really important that they're exploring natural items. So things that are on the ground. If you go watch a typical toddler, what are they doing? Probably eating rocks, throwing sand, right? I'm not suggesting you let your kid eat rocks, but we want to be exploring some of those natural materials that our kids don't always get their hands on. And we also want to think about the people that your child is interacting with. So again, if you think back to those pictures, right, it's typically mom, sometimes dad on the floor with the provider. But are there siblings in the house? Are we including them? Do grandparents spend time with your child? Cousins, friends, other caregivers? EI providers out in the community is a little bit different experience than, Miss Amy, who always comes and sits on the rug. And then neighbors. Does your child have friends in their apartment building? Do they know who else lives nearby? Those are important things to consider as well. So Lacey's going to share a little bit more about some of the things we want you to think about.
Sorry. Yeah, in natural environments, thinking about activities. So a lot of our kids are learning through routine-based learning, meal times, bathing, dressing, but we can also give them more opportunities to participate in classes, different kind of play, again, reading and taking a walk out in nature. In our community, we could go take them shopping, as Brenda mentioned, go on MBTA rides, aquarium, museum. Literally, we can go anywhere to give our kids different opportunities that most children have. So why are natural environments important? It's because children learn best when they're interacting with familiar people and engaging activities. I always think about the more meaningful we can make it for our child or the kid that we're working with, the better, because it's going to help them really solidify what they're learning. Natural environments create opportunities for inclusion, development of new skills, understanding of abstract concepts, opportunities for social interactions, and it gives an opportunity for problem solving for families around natural routines and activities. On this slide, there's 3 pictures, and I'm going to everything's better with friends. So I can just say, when my daughter was young, I brought her to the infant toddler group here on campus, and I met a lot of wonderful friends. And I have remained friends with many of them because it was somebody that I could relate to, because they were raising a child also with a visual impairment, and that can be a little scary and unknown for most of us. But on the left, there's a picture of my daughter and her friend Silas when they went strawberry picking. In the middle picture, it's my daughter and Hannah swimming together. And then the far right is, again, Hannah and Savannah, who are,
Click one.
sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well, I can tell you that again. So Silas, sorry, I'm in charge of the clicker, but once I started speaking, I forgot to move forward. Silas and Savannah are strawberry picking. Hannah and Savannah are swimming together. And then there's a picture of Hannah, and Savannah has her head in her lap. So these are all just different things. Like, we've always been big on building friendships and being out in the community. The one on the far right is actually here at Perkins when they were hosting a beeping egg hunt.
And now you're going to advance. Look at that. We do know how to advance slides. So there's a trail that my family and I go to on vacation up in Bar Harbor in Acadia National Park. It's an accessible path, and my daughter loves it. And so I happened to see this sign when we were there, and it says, "I go to nature to be soothed and healed and to have my senses put in order." And underneath of that, it says, "Run your fingers along a fern's delicate leaf-like fronds." And it really just kind of brought home to me that in every aspect of learning, for sighted, hearing children, for children who have visual impairments, deafblind, all of these experiences out in the world, and touching and feeling and listening, getting your body out in nature, are really, really crucial. And a lot of the times our students just don't have that opportunity. And so we really want to give parents and providers the resources that they need to be able to do that. So this is a photo of my daughter when she was little, and her brother playing outside in our sort of backyard. You can see it's not luscious or big. But what are some of the things that were important to me? I wanted her to have fresh air. A lot of our kids, my daughter included, spend a lot of time in the hospital or in clinic settings. And that's that's not a really like calming environment for our kids. We need fresh air. We need to be outdoors. It gives them the freedom to move and the opportunity to move in different ways. And that's true whether your child is learning to walk, whether your child's in a wheelchair, whether your child has some limited movement. Being outdoors and having somebody support your body in new ways can be really important. It's therapeutic. It stimulates new pathways in your brain. It's a way to incorporate life skills. For some kids, it can improve behavior. You know, there's a reason that they tell adults, right? Like everybody ever heard, like, go touch grass, right? Like there's a reason we tell people that, because it's soothing and it's calming. And it also can boost confidence. One of the things that typically developing children get by being outdoors is this, like, what works for me and what doesn't. And like, oops, I made a mistake, but I can fix it. I learned to run and pace myself. We want our kids to have those same experiences, and they get that by being in new environments and not just in their own homes.
Yeah, as Brenda mentioned, kind of, I just think for us as adults too, it's really important for us to free our minds and have something to do with our kids that we enjoy. And so for Savannah, again, I love to take her out on walks. This past week was April vacation, and we had the most gorgeous weather, and we got outside every single day, and it was good for both of us. I think we both needed that. So there's tons of places to explore. On the left, there's a photo of Savannah, and she's on a little hay ride. And I think I can't remember if we were strawberry picking again. I think that's exactly what we were doing at a different location. And then the other photo on the right is just her kind of on a nature walk. There's also social emotional benefits. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Okay, there, sorry. There's also social emotional benefits. It's a good way to expend their energy. Like all of us need to just get outside. It can reduce tension and anxiety, changes in the environment. It's, I think we all know it's just kind of nice to get outside and just get some fresh air. It gives opportunities for new peer interactions, such as at a park or at a, any place you're taking your kid that other kids are. It does give us an opportunity to interact with families, with other kids. And then it really can make just strong family connections. Again, there's a picture of Savannah and Hannah in the water. That's something they both really enjoy. And then the other picture is Savannah at my mom's house. So in Kansas with her 2 cousins, we just put her feeding seat in the pool because she needed that support without me having to be in there with her. Okay, so the impact of visual impairments on deaf blindness or complex medical needs. So when I think about access to natural environments outdoors, thinking about my daughter, I would put her in the complex medical. So one of the reasons we don't get out a lot in the winter is because I'm nervous about her getting exposed to germs. So we're very in-home people in the winter. It's difficulty doing medical care out in the community. Different treatments and personal care in communities is also very challenging. Visual impairments and deaf blindness, I think too, like safety concerns for how children will navigate new spaces, worrying about will the child get anything out of this experience? That's something I think a lot to myself. How do I make this meaningful to my child? And then the fears and sensory concerns, like new sounds. I remember when Savannah was little, she's integrates sound a little bit better than she used to, but I'd take her for a walk. She'd hear a fire engine or a motorcycle, and she'd immediately start hitting her head because she doesn't have that experience with a fire engine or a motorcycle. And so that to her was scary. Different sights and sensations can be overwhelming for some children with complex disabilities. So outdoor experiences encourage the use of, I don't know why this... There, thanks. Tactile, visual, auditory, olfactory, and proprioceptive yeah, it's back to you. Sorry.
That's okay. So the reason that we, as educators want to talk about this is obviously we want our kids out there having fun. As a parent, I want my daughter to be involved in all of the activities that we do. I want her to have fun. As an educator, right, when I'm putting my teacher hat on, what are we learning from these experiences? And so we know that they need to learn about textures, sights, and sounds that exist in the world beyond their home. So things that you probably aren't touching in your living room are grass, sand, concrete. How many of your kids have had the experience to touch concrete, right? Like that's not something that we think about, but how are we going to build understanding if they don't even know what it is? Linoleum, right? There's different textures in your kitchen and bathroom than there is if you're sitting on the rug in your living room. All the different sounds, like Lacey was just saying, we want our children to understand what the sounds are so that both they build an understanding and we can decrease some of that fear. If everything feels overwhelming because you don't know where that sound is coming from or what it means, your anxiety level is so high, it becomes really difficult to learn. We want kids to feel part of those exciting moments. When a crowd is cheering, we want our kids to feel that energy and that excitement. And also, when we're thinking about children who do have some functional vision, understanding things like what is the size of a building? What's the difference between a house and a skyscraper, right? Those are different buildings. And it matters when you're thinking about literacy and all of those other things. Animals. I remember hearing a story way back when my daughter was little about a high school student who was getting ready to go off to college, highly academic student, and was at a location, and one of his friends, so the student was blind, and one of his friends said, "Oh, be careful, there's a bird on the sidewalk." And he said, "Wait, what? Why is there a bird on the sidewalk? Is it dead?" And he said, "No, no, it's just hopping on the sidewalk." He had no idea that birds could walk, right? Because every experience he'd ever had was that birds fly. People talk, when you talk about birds, you talk about their flying. He didn't know that they actually can be on the ground. So birds have legs and they hop around. He hadn't had a lot of outdoor experiences. Nobody had thought to talk to him about where else birds are. So really important things. So this is a picture of my daughter and her brother and sister playing outside in the snow. And my daughter's totally blind. She has no functional vision. And so I really wanted her to understand things like weather and what it's like to play outside. Also, her brother and sister are very active and were what I like to call spirited children. So we needed all of that. Please get your energy out outdoors. But we learned things about snow and about what does it feel like when we're wearing different clothes, right? Because if she had her way, she'd be barefoot in a onesie in the living room when she was a toddler. But we can't do that when it's cold outside. We need snow pants and we need mittens. And then what kinds of sounds happen, right? Snow has a sound when you make a snowball and it makes that squeaky kind of noise. And when you throw it at your brother and it smashes against his snowsuit, it's fun to play in the snow. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's wet. All of those things are concepts that I can read her a million stories about the snow falling. But if you're not experiencing it, you're not really understanding. So we like to call this move, touch, do. There's a picture on the left, I think. I'm not an O&M for a reason. That's my daughter on a scooter. And that was her brother and sister, unbeknownst to me, decided that it would be a really good idea for my totally blind child who lives on a really busy street to learn how to ride a scooter. And they decided that the best way to do that was to make sure mom didn't know about it. So they took her outside, and what you can't see is behind them is a hill. And they decided that they would help her learn how to ride the scooter on a hill. And all I heard was, "Mom, come quick." That's my favorite phrase. And so I came outside and she was loving this. She was laughing. She was smiling. She was having an absolute ball. They felt like they had just accomplished some sort of absolute magic with her. I had a really small heart attack. But it made me realize that I might want her to stay safe and protected, but she needed a little bit of daredevil, just like every other kid does. She has since turned into not a little daredevil. She is a very big daredevil. Her favorite rides are roller coasters, preferably the faster the better. Anything that whips her around, like she's just crazy about this stuff. So those early experiences helped her develop a sense of her body in space and what is fun, what feels good. And then this is just a picture of her exploring leaves and things outdoors, and getting a sense of, we talk about fall and we talk about leaves, but what does that feel like?
We'll get this little change around and figure it out at some point. Yeah, all the things that just being outdoors you can experience. And so we live on the North Shore, and so we live near the ocean. So I often think that's one of the most peaceful places for my mind to be, is like just go throw her on a blanket and not down on the sand or the rocks. I have put her in the sand, as you can see from our bottom right picture. It's Savannah sitting in a chair exploring the sand with her feet. That day, it's not showed. We were there with a group of friends. We had brought a little blow up pool so that we could bring the ocean water to them instead of bringing them to the ocean water. But it's just really just getting outdoors, giving our kids these different opportunities. It's good, again, for all of us. That's you. Yeah.
So one of the things that we talk a lot about is fostering that concept development that I was talking about earlier, and thinking about the language that our children need if they're going to be in school and having experiences with literacy and lessons, whether that's through sort of traditional academics or other types of learning. Concepts are still really important. And so things that you can learn outdoors, right? We talk a lot about the fact that miniature objects are not real objects. Matchbox cars are not cars. Like the little Thomas the Tank Engine, I'm dating myself so badly, is not a train, right? That's a plastic toy that represents a train, but it isn't a train. And all of the textured books in the world are not going to give you the feeling of wind or rain or snow. So we want to develop those real concepts. And then things, when you go about your day, if your child is with you in the grocery store, how do we learn about all the different kinds of fruits and vegetables? Have you ever just been in the grocery store and looked at all of the different textures of fruit, right? Like dragon fruit and mangoes and all sorts of crazy things that your child could pick up and touch and learn about. We learn about money. Sighted kids learn all of this stuff incidentally, right? We go to the grocery store, mom opens up her wallet, she hands the guy this little piece of plastic, and then we get to take things home. Our kids often don't have any concept of that because they're not seeing that. We want to let them experience it. And if you're thinking about your children getting older, how are they going to learn about what happens in the community? What is work? Who works there? Sighted kids, again, get to see, oh, mommy hands it to the cashier. I might have a conversation with them. Oh, that's the person who works here. But we don't always do that for our other children. And we want them to understand who's in your community, what kind of jobs are available, what's a librarian. When you hear that siren, oh, that's the fire truck. Maybe we go visit the fire station and get introduced to those people. I also love the idea of kids participating in whatever way they're able. As I said before, my two older kids are super active individuals, and they were involved in a lot of different activities. I also really wanted to be sure that as a family, we weren't being divided, right? So it's really easy to say, oh, dad's going to take the kids to the soccer game and mom's going to stay home with the kiddo. And sometimes that might be necessary, but if you have older kids, if you have siblings in your family, or if you have cousins that really want you to come to the game, or a niece or nephew, helping your child explore those things can really give them a lot of concept development. So this is Jillian holding a soccer ball. You'll notice she's barefoot because, again, she would be barefoot all the time if she could. But she gets to stand in the grass and feel that. So that was really great. Exploring a chain link fence. We talk a lot about, fencing is around different spaces, playgrounds and things. And then she loves playing miniature golf. Fun fact, in a pinch, you can use a miniature golf club as a cane. Don't ask me how I know that. But again, these are family activities and we really wanted her to be part of our family.
And this is Savannah. Her dad is pushing her down our very snowy street in a sled. So she's getting to experience what that feels like, as well as the cold and everything else. We definitely set her in the snow and let her explore a little. Of course, we have mittens on her, always that protective mom worried about getting her too cold. But when she, another thing I think about with snow, and Brenda was talking earlier, is like we bring snow in a lot too to make it easier for us. So she's still getting that opportunity to explore it. So she's, I've set up like a little tactile tray for her to explore the snow. She doesn't really like to touch cold things, so it usually doesn't last long. But we've also like done things like let's make snow ice cream, and that's been another way for her to experience tasting snow. So outdoor experiences help develop fine and gross motor. Oh, sorry about that. Children with visual impairments, deaf blindness, and additional disabilities often have limited access and opportunities to explore spaces and move their bodies in new ways. So thinking about strollers and wheelchairs, using different types of chairs, pushing the disability access buttons, gait trainers, walkers, like navigating new surfaces. There's a lot of different ways we can explore. Walking, white cane training. We're going to play a portion of a video.
Lacey, can you show me the bright sun?
You can't hear it.
Yes. Where's your shadow? Say hi, shadow. Shadow.
Hi, Shadow.
Can you go down so the shadow goes bye-bye?
Okay.
Lacey, can you show me the bright sun?
We can also kind of describe what happens in this video.
Yes. Where's your shadow? Say hi, shadow.
Hi, Shadow.
Can you go down so the shadow goes bye-bye? Okay,
So again, in
come
this
on
video,
up.
there's a lot of different concepts: up, down, shadow, feeling the sun.
That's good.
Oh.
There we go. Yep. perfect.
Okay. So when Savannah was, well, I won't say when she was younger, we still do therapy outdoors, but I just love her to be outside. And so as hard as it can be to get her equipment outside, I'd still do it. So this is her in her stander outdoors. And then the middle photo is of Brenda's daughter learning to use her first cane. And then again, Savannah is the far right and she's in her gait trainer. Obstacles. This is what I think of a lot for myself. Families find it harder to connect with others sometimes if you're at a playground and your child's the only one there with a disability. It can be really hard to just make conversation and walk up to other people. It can be hard for our kids as well. Changing spaces, something I still experience. My daughter needs to be changed from time to time. And we will not get that. We're not getting that right. But how and where does this happen? Most places don't have that like adult size changing spaces for us. So we make it work. Sometimes it's in the back of our trunk. But we do have to think about also timing, her medications, rest, all of these things are impacting us getting out in the environment. Concerns with how the emotional impact to a parent and child of like potential negative interactions. Like when Savannah was really young, I remember a lot of people would ask me, are those glasses real? And You know, I always say to everybody, the one thing I wish I would have said back is, no, they're just an accessory. Aren't they cute? But I didn't. But it's really a lot of work to get them out, especially as they get older. And I think that's the important piece, is like starting young, because then it's going to be part of your routine. We do not have a yard really. We have a side rocky area. So we often just go outdoors in nearby playground or park, or just to sit outside. Okay, I'm going to start this one for the right. Travel. My family lives in the Midwest, and we travel once or twice a year to see them. And I will not stop doing that even as it gets harder. But this picture on the right showcases that's a lot of work. It's Savannah. It's her wheelchair. It's a backpack with her bath chair, which now is at my mom's, so we don't have to bring that anymore. It's her lunchbox, a suitcase, and a car seat.
And Lacey's a lot more adventurous than I am, because I don't travel by myself with Jillian yet, because like you'll see, it's a lot of work. But we just went on our farthest trip ever. We went to California. She got to put her feet in the Pacific Ocean, and she gets to experience, that's where my brother lives. He's in California. So she got to hang out with her cousins that she rarely sees. It is difficult, and you don't know what you don't know until you get there, right? But there's lots of resources. So I share information about TSA cares with families. I share information about the red cap if you're using the train. There's lots of options for families that are traveling with a child with disabilities, but families often don't know that, right? And so we want to point out that there's ways to make this easier, and the more you do it, the less intimidating it becomes, right? The first time we decided to go on a train trip to New York, I was like, I don't think this is going to go very well. It was great. She loves New York City. But you know, we made a few mistakes, and now we've learned from those. And she gets to experience a lot more things because we're willing to travel. Travel might mean different things for different families. It doesn't have to mean a trip to California or Kansas, but you know, think about beyond your own community. This is all Savannah's amazing adaptive sports, so I'm definitely going to let Lacey talk about this.
Running low on time, so I'll touch briefly. But you know, we've always tried to encourage her to be a participant in the community. She's done horse therapy. This is her riding her bike. We've participated in a T-ball. So I try to give her every opportunity that I would if I had a child that was developing typically.
And this is Jillian also participating. So,
oh, sorry, there's
nope.
Savannah.
And that's Jillian. So this is Jillian participating in something called Unified Sports, which is sports teams that are integrated. So it's students with disabilities competing alongside their typical peers. They're kind of partnered up. And then also doing something like kayaking. When she first went to this event, the woman said, well, I've never had a blind kayaker before. I'm not really sure what to do. And Jillian said, I've never been a blind kayaker before, so neither do I. And she loves it. These are experiences. One of the things I think Lacey and I have talked a lot about is sometimes it's really hard as a parent. I was like, you're going to take her out in the water, like by herself, and I'm not going to be there. But it builds independence and it builds skills, and she has to have a conversation with these people, right, while she's in the boat. And they get to know her, and she builds a community away from us. So we have a couple of videos that I think are really helpful to see what it looks like when kids are participating in these activities. And Savannah's been lucky. Lacey knew about and has shared now these resources with families. We didn't find out about some of this stuff till Jill was older. But I wish that we had been participating in some of the adaptive recreation sooner.
I hope you just saw kind of what she was doing, but she was doing an adaptive hockey event. But she does a lot of adaptive sports, and it's been really fun for all of us. Here is one of Savannah. Yeah, this one. Okay, Brenda talked about Jill liking thrill and adventure. Well, here you go too. loves things that go fast. And so we try to give her these opportunities, and it's a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of work for us. Here's another one of her doing adaptive sailing. She's a kid who smiles with her whole body all the time. And then this is also one of her favorite things, water. So this is a video of her doing surfing. We've adapted the chair so that she can participate in something like this. As you can see, she loves it.
I love that so much.
And then here is one. This one was a really scary one for us, water skiing. When I called the instructor to say, hey, what does that look like? And he sent me a picture of what the water ski looked like. And he told me when I got there that she would not be buckled in. Well, of course she wouldn't, because she'd be at risk for drowning that way if it tipped. But for me to be able to trust people I don't know to take her, up on a ski lift or in the water. But again, you can watch her reactions. She just loves this kind of stuff. And we've found ways to do it. She's never tipped over. We usually put a little tube around her to just keep her a little bit more stable. But again, we just love to get out and do these type of adventures.
So these are, Jillian is thrilled that Lacey told us about surfing because I didn't know about that. And Lacey was like, you should let her go surfing. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't really think that's a great idea. So this first video is Jillian surfing. Oh, and the second video is Jillian doing CrossFit. So look, if you had told me when my child was in early intervention, if anybody had said to me, your child is going to join a gym and she's going to compete in CrossFit, I would have been like, yeah, you should probably see a doctor. So I signed her up thinking this was adaptive fitness. And my husband takes her every Saturday morning, and he called me and he said, did you know it's a CrossFit gym? And I said, no, I'm really sorry. She probably hated it. And he said, no, she's obsessed. She goes twice a week. Yeah, she's actually gotten really strong. It's changed like a lot of her body mechanics and dynamics. Let me be really clear. I do not do CrossFit. But one of the things it's also done for her is build this tremendous confidence. She is not she's not a shy kid, but as a person living in a complex body and a person with visual impairments, it can be really hard for her to feel confident navigating spaces and to feel confident interacting with others when she doesn't always have a point of conversational reference. And so this has really given her a lot of opportunity to expand on what she knows. When she started going surfing, she had this amazing instructor who decided that Jillian was really cool. And so he ended up meeting us later on in the summer and saying like, hey, I'll take Jillian surfing if you guys want to just get her out in the water again. And he genuinely, he keeps in touch with her. Unfortunately, it means that my daughter has decided her career goal now is to be a beach bum. Told her that's not really profitable, but she didn't listen. But these are really important things, right? Like building that community. And for myself, making sure that I allow her to build relationships that aren't about me and that aren't always about kind of something she has to learn or something she has to do. This is just fun. She is learning and developing like all of us do when we try something new, but I want her to just have that fun activity. She surfed I think that day she went 30 times. I was exhausted just watching her. So these are just some pictures, of her getting out and about. I think it's just important. That's just our little garden in our, our backyard, going out to national parks. And then she's part of something called Team Impact, which I believe is in our resource list. If you're interested in learning more about that, that's a really great organization as well. So what I like to say to families is embrace the unique way that your child's blooming, right? Even if it's not in the garden you imagine. This is a quote that I found. I would not have, when Jillian was an infant, imagined any of this to be possible because I didn't know anybody who was doing it, right? She was the first blind person I met. And I didn't know what was possible. I just knew that I wanted her to be part of our community and I wanted her to have a fun, exciting childhood in whatever way that was possible. So I think that would be my message is it doesn't have to look exactly the way you imagined, but it can still be really good.
Okay. Okay. And kind of to wrap things up and end, we have this quote. Savannah's done some Team Hoyt racing for those of you who are familiar with Team Hoyt. Again, she likes the thrill. So the faster the runner, the more fun it is for her. But when it's from Rick Hoyt, it says, when my dad was 36 years old and we lived in Westfield, we ran our first race. After the race, I could not wait to get to my computer to tell my father how I felt. I wrote, Dad, when we are running, my disability seems to disappear. So, oh, is this for us? Yeah. Oh, so why Britta and I are doing this, it's just really important to give our kids different opportunities. It can be really challenging to find those opportunities and to be brave for them. But the more we show up and do that, I think the more enjoyment they get it in their life.
Okay. So it sounds like we might have some questions. Oh, if they
Oh.
had questions. Okay. I'll let them take this part. Also, thank you all. I know we had some interesting tech challenges this morning, both things we couldn't control and things we could.
Yeah.
So thank you. But we really do enjoy, sharing the story. And if you're, providers, I hope that this kind of gives you permission to be a little more adventurous with your student. Okay.
Hello. Oh, yes, you can hear me. Great. Hi, I'm Rachel. Thank you. Yes, I agree. Thank you so much for your patience. We've practiced this ad nauseum, but things never go as planned. So we really, really appreciate it. But yes, because we are a little short on time, if you have questions, please, you can always find Brenda or Lacey after the presentation or email earlyconnections@perkins.org. We'll pass along your questions to them, both virtual and in person, and we'll get those answered for you. So again, we appreciate your patience. We're sorry we can't have a full Q&A, but we'll make sure your questions get answered.
And the resource list is is it on the app? Yes. So there is, in the app, there should be a handout and it has links to some of the organizations that Lacey and I talked about today, as well as some of the different areas within Massachusetts and New England that you might want to think about exploring, like accessible trails, those types of things. But certainly feel free to find us as well. We're happy to answer any questions and answer any emails if they come through. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you.